Hey everyone, Larry Bailey here, Awesome Technologies. I'm back in Jersey. It's Tuesday at 4 o'clock Eastern. We meet every Tuesday as a community. We talk about things. We talk about things that are important to you. And most importantly, we have a topic. First and foremost, hopefully everybody had safe travels back from the ICE Mortgage Technology Conference, the ICE experience this past week. Glad to see everybody showing up. So that tells me I didn't hear any bad news. So that tells me everybody got back safe and sound, which is terrific. Great to hear. And second of all, again, thanks very much for coming to these every Tuesday at 4 o'clock, because these events honestly are for you. I know I usually do all the talking, but the idea here is this is a conversation. We had a fantastic wrap-up show. We had about 20 community members, including myself. We had a couple of other folks, special guests, join us for that day, but it was a fantastic day. I do plan on getting portions of of that 6 hours released here to the space to kind of tie things together, because we had a really good time talking about what everybody went to in terms of the breakout sessions, what everybody thought about this year's ICE conference, and why we think it's probably a good idea to make sure we get there next year as a bigger group. So first and foremost, any questions at all? Today's topic is all about preparing for a major release of software. Naturally, we've got 24.1 coming out on in about, what is it, about 10 days, right? A week plus 3, week plus 2, so 9 to 10 days. Hopefully you've been doing your due diligence in your testing environment, presuming that you have one, because not everybody has one. But at the very least, hopefully you've been able to go through the release notes that are in writing, all the pre-release, all the video walkthroughs I've done in the community, and then lastly, I know that there are a couple of other written resources. I know Kinsey May puts out Quill Notes and Lender Toolkit. I saw I don't know if it's the first time, but I saw recently where they put out like a summary. I'm one of those people that I read very fast, and a lot of pages makes me even read faster. I usually miss stuff. So it's kind of the reason why I go through and I do the videos, because it's for me, it's cathartic. I go through and I make sure I visit everything. So I want to share some of the pieces that are important that I found. I also want to share some important feedback for you where I've seen companies kind of fall down on a major release. And then I want to see what you guys are actually doing. So first of all, want to make sure that I see it looks like people are chatting, but I'm not seeing any chats coming through. So I don't know. Okay, cool. It is working. All right, good deal. So first of all, if you're going through any major release, and again, I'm always talking about Encompass, but there are plenty of major releases and pieces of software. It could be a third-party plugin that you have. It could be something connected to Encompass at all. It could be like an update to, I don't know, Microsoft, like Copilot is a pretty big update that happened recently. It could be a lot of different things. So I'm curious, what are you using, first of all, to stay on top of when major releases are happening? A lot of companies have internal calendars. Curious if you have one that you share with the company, or do you just kind of send out emails and hope people are reading them, which are probably maybe only sometimes, to remind them that, hey, on this day, Encompass isn't going to work. So like next weekend, this weekend is Easter to celebrate that. So people tend to maybe not be working so much, plus they're exhausted from the month of March. So they're probably not looking forward to working this weekend, but next weekend they might try to be, right? You might have loan officers out in the field. You might have contract processors or your own processors working on files. You might have your funding team trying to get that deal funded or post-closing. And so how are you getting the first thing is, how are you getting notifications out to your team to know when major releases are happening? I can tell you that companies tend to struggle with this a lot. As much as companies love to have an intranet, to make sure that date gets on everybody's calendar to remind them, typically is a series of emails. And so Amy says we review release notes, and then you actually cater communications. Yeah, but Amy, question for you. And again, you might not have this problem because of the type of company you are, but if you're, do you have to worry about people trying to log in over the weekend, even if they're not part of the release group? For those that work in banks or credit unions, maybe you don't have to worry about over the weekend stuff because you don't really have that problem. But for those that work in independent mortgage companies, and you can't access Encompass, it's always supposed to be overnight. ICE historic, the last couple of major releases actually has been really good from my experience. I'm doing it actually in the middle of the night. So there you go. So Amy says, I'm sorry, John says, John sends out full release notes to the managers, but he'll make an announcement of the company is happening as well as changes that pertain to them. Amy says we always know what's happening. And we're always up on Sunday mornings, making any adjustments as needed. Lewis says, even if I tell them, they'll still try to log in and complain. They can't. Does anybody actually lock out? Does anybody actually use user lockout during maintenance windows? I'm just curious. It's pretty rare. Typically, companies only do that if they're doing like some type of internal development. Major releases, you're either working or you're not. But for those companies that have custom dev, like sometimes you don't want people logging into the new instance until you update your own internal tech to make sure that the server's on the same version as the tech, so you don't have any weird problems. John says, I think I would be crucified if I locked people out. Well, Amy, so what I'm talking about is, right, a major, you have to update your if anybody's still using SDK software, you have to update that SDK. And so it's kind of got to happen one after the other. They have to give it to your instance, and then you have to update the SDK. Otherwise, your SDK won't work. It's kind of a dance. All right, so we talked about calendars. We talked about notifications. Your SDK auto updates. SDKs don't auto update. Your tech team actually has to download the new SDK. So maybe it automatically pushes from test into production automatically. But yeah, there's nothing automatic about it. They might do it. Yeah, and that's what Jody's saying is you have to log into the server hosting the SDK and pull down the correct version, update the SDK, and then it goes to work. Otherwise, there'll be a client-server mismatch. So for those that didn't know that, now you know. All right, so that's number one. Number two, I know it's already been said. It's already been said a couple times here.